Show with special guest John Cassavetes, Peter Falk, Ben Gazzara, and Bob Rosengarten and the orchestra. Ladies and gentlemen, Dick Cavett.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hey.
Did I throw you off by saying
Yeah,
hey?
well,
Like,
you
right
threw me
behind you. I'm sorry. You want to start over?
No, I'm into that. I thought it was funny.
Oh, yeah.
How you doing?
Chilling. Are you talking? Wait, you talking to me or our audience?
You.
Our audience of three.
You.
I'm doing great. I'm excited. I'm excited
Off
about
to
this.
a tough start. Yeah, this. So what is this, George? What are we doing?
So we are, and this kind of goes back to our first episode.
We're drinking a little.
Where we discussed kind of our initial impetus. I'm George Fragopoulos, by the way. Should we do introductions?
Yeah, you're George Fragopoulos. I'm Liam Billingham. This is a
very special holiday episode
This is a
of Uberbusters.
holiday
Actually, when
episode
this
of
comes out, it will
Uberbusters.
no longer be the
when
holidays.
this episode comes out, it'll be 2019. I'll be 36 years old.
Whoa.
My birthday is on Thursday.
And the world will still be a terrible place. But you will have this
Happy
podcast
birthday,
to listen
John
to.
Cassavetes.
You will have this podcast to listen to. So this goes back to our first episode
It does.
where we briefly discussed how the initial impetus for the show was you watching or alerting me, watching and also telling me about Cassavetes' appearance with Peter Falk
On
and Ben
the Dick
Gazzara
Cavett
on
Show.
the Dick Cavett Show, where they act like complete lunatics.
Fools. Acted fools.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing little clip.
So what we're gonna do, or show actually. It's not
Well, we're
even
gonna
just a clip.
shoot. What
Yeah.
we're gonna do. So recently, I checked the internet for this clip.
What's the internet?
I checked the information
This isn't an
superhighway.
internet podcast.
Welcome to Reply All.
People are confused.
I check the internet every few months for this clip. And recently it was on Daily Motion, but it has reappeared on YouTube now. Of course, this clip seems to be controlled pretty strongly by the Dick Cavett media empire.
Media
fascist. But it's resurfaced. So check out the show notes for the link. What we recommend you do is we're gonna press play on this thing and.
So what we're gonna talk over is this show.
You know how directors do director's commentary?
Totally.
This is
buffoonery commentary.
This is commentary.
Buffoonary?
This is buffoonary.
We have to work on that.
We have to work on the name. So this is a
Buffoonary sounds pretty good.
So what we're gonna do? First of all, George has a little wine. I have a little bourbon, and we've been drinking for how many days?
Oh my god, lost track of time.
Oof, I lost my job. George lost his dignity. And we're gonna watch all 40 minutes of this thing and talk our way through it.
Yeah.
Should we preface it?
I think we just did.
We
So
did.
this is again the three of them to promote husbands going on the Dick Cavett Show.
Peter Falk, Ben Gazzara, and John Cassavetes appear on the Dick Cavett Show
And
to promote.
And speaking of promote husbands, and speaking of buffoonery, this is kind of what unfolds. So what we're gonna do right now is hit play on the first clip
Of the
So if you're keeping track at home,
press play. Wait for it. Wait for it.
And again, these clips are on YouTube.
Wait, that's not the right one. Wait for it. Here we go.
Now. So right now we are looking at the chalkboard.
Yeah, so it's the sort of the pre-show announcement.
Show 191.
Okay, and that somehow got included. But now we have the wonderful Dick Cavett opening titles.
Oh, I miss them so. When did the show air? I mean, like in terms of how long was the Cavett Show on the air?
Well, okay, I didn't know this was a book report. It was on for a long time. I mean, he's had shows on and off for a while. What I like about the Dick Cavett Show is...
He's still alive?
He is still alive, still around. He's featured on... I've heard a good interview with him on Film Wax Radio, which is another podcast I recommend.
And here comes Dick.
Hello, Dick.
Oh, he looks like he's first time on this this soundstage.
I think I'm not so sure about that, but what I do like off the gate is you very much get a sense that this is like a very friendly guy, kind of affable. You feel that because he just starts goofing off, and he's very good at playing like the clever fool.
Totally.
Like he's kind of a buffoon, but he's also quite clever.
Yes. The thinking man's buffoon.
I would say so. And what's great about is that he's about to encounter 3 buffoons
and goons too. Sharp suit too.
Very sharp suit. Good good giant tie.
Really good use of the hands.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
It's hard to fill the time.
Oh, it is.
We're trying to figure out what to say. He's talking about Monday Night Football.
Oh yeah, actually, that'll be interesting too because this is the second time I've seen this. But the juxtaposition between these dudes running amok on the soundstage and kind of them cutting to these ads for Monday Night Football is really fascinating. But yes, that's right. So this was something I forgot. Not a halftime thing. Was it a halftime thing?
No, there was something
Running
about them
up
going.
to?
They were on early. They were all doing a 45-minute show as opposed to an hour, I think.
Right. But yeah, the juxtaposition is really telling in terms of kind of the masculinities being paraded here.
Yeah, I've always said, because I'm very smart, that Dick
I like how you
Cavett.
just slipped that in
Dick
there.
Cavett is a guy you invite into your home, and John Cassavetes is a guy whose movie you watch in like a
Oh.
porno theater. I said that in the first episode.
I thought you were going to say Dick Cavett is the kind of guy you invite to your home, and John Cassavetes is the kind of guy you invite to your bedroom.
We should also say here that
No?
I mean, I'd fuck John Cassavetes.
I thought we talked about the last episode.
Well, yeah, it's so hot. We should also, what we're ignoring here on the screen is Dick Cavett was probably pretty influential in the comedy game. I mean, he's very funny. There's a Letterman-esque quality to
There
the
is,
absurdity
yes.
to it. It's a lot more, like, again, I keep saying it, affable. Oh, here we go. We're talking about the movie.
Individual, aggressive.
He's describing them as
Animals.
animals. He just described John Cassavetes, Ben Gazzara.
So do you think at this point he knows that they've been backstage just getting totally fucking twisted?
I don't know. What's interesting here is they just gave more of a description than the movie does about itself. They say it's about men turning 40 and reconsidering their lives. I think that's a hard thing to describe, right? But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Oh my goodness.
Here they come. Stumbling out.
My
Gazzara has a cigar, it looks like, and
Gazzara has a cigar and a
drink.
bourbon.
Yeah.
He's wearing a tie. He's the best dressed one. John Cassavetes is not as well dressed as he should be.
Well,
and
Peter
Falk
it looks like he's wearing like a dad suit.
It's a dad suit.
It's amazing.
And Ben Gazzara is already on his feet, calling Cassavetes an animal. They're smoking.
Shades of Raging Bull. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Cassavetes just said hi to his mom.
Falk said hi to his son, and Gazzara. So
It's great that you could see the mics.
you see the microphones;
Yeah.
they're moving between them. This gives you a sense that the expectation is that they're going to sit politely, and we both know that's not going to happen.
You mean that because of the mics?
Yeah, well, there's a certain format to this thing, and they're about to break it.
Oh, without question, yeah. I just thought that was just kind of like
Now, to
a
come back to your next
faux pas.
question, they're not talking to him. Does he know how slosh they are? Do you think he knew how slosh they were?
Maybe not. But I mean, I have a feeling there's definitely there has to be some sort of pre-game communication. Maybe not that he knows that they were slosh, but that they were having a good time.
Right. Totally. I think that has to be true, right? I think he is.
Well, did they? Because Cassavetes probably did, but do you think Gazzara and Falk had reputations of being like bad boys?
I don't really know. I mean, they're all pretty well-regarded actors at this point, and they're working a lot. And Hollywood. This sort of predates that 1970s Dennis Hopper, Peter Fonda kind of vibe. They're sort of like the original sort of bad boys. And already it's gotten adversarial. They're not talking
He just
to.
said, "Yeah, I hope they show your movie interrupted by deodorant commercials."
Yeah, which is pretty.
It's a great line.
Yeah. So there's this weird power play. There's almost like a bad cop vibe to the whole thing.
Well, they're bullying him. Or
They really are. Yeah, they're bullying him, but they're doing it in like a. We're trying to watch and talk at the same time here.
Sorry, we were saying they're bullying him, but
there's a. What's worse than the bullying is the kind of
There we go.
John Cassavetes does his first pratfall.
the first pratfall.
So they're bullying him, but they're also just making it hard for him to do his show. They've just cut to a commercial. Ooh, during this commercial, let's ignore the commercials and talk a little bit more about
Although I do also think there's something fascinating. Sorry about the commercials in terms of them being
they're very
part of this time capsule.
They're very specific to the period.
But go ahead.
You know, it's a really, when I saw this for the first time years ago, I thought it was really funny because it's funny to watch high status, because there's a whole status, low status, high status thing here. And I think Dick Cavett has the effortless ability to make everyone look foolish, but he can't find his way around these guys because they're cleverly, I don't know, it's hard to describe. They're doing,
That's interesting.
like, when you're that much of, when you have nothing to lose, and we'll come back to this, but it feels like they walked into this interview not giving a shit, and that gives you a kind of power,
question.
and probably was completely unacceptable from a media perspective at this time. You didn't jockey life. Who says underwear has to be dull? Sorry,
I thought we were going to ignore the
I couldn't ignore that.
So it's funny you should say that too, because today I was randomly reading something, and I forgot who the author is, but there was...
Was it the John Cassavetes
encyclopedia?
Yeah.
No, it was not actually. It was a review in the magazine N+1. Do you know N+1?
No, I don't.
It's a literary magazine, but they also kind of review films, and they have a really excellent review critic. I forgot what her name is, but I apologize for drawing a blank. But anyway, at some point...
I only read the Brooklyn Rail.
Oh, this is so.
There are a lot of commercials, and they only have single shots here. Anyways, continue about N+1.
I was about to bash the Brooklyn Rail. Not that I know anything about the Brooklyn Rail.
Have you ever read it?
No.
You'd like
I'm
it.
a pleb.
You're a big Marxist, right?
I am a big Marxist, yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd be into it.
So I was reading this review.
Mm-hmm. Of what?
It was just basically about how shitty kind of the review industry is now, especially kind of like Rotten Tomatoes, and how much kind of it's like how high stakes it is, but also how kind of there's like no stakes involved at all. But they quoted Cassavetes at some point, basically, who said like I could give care less about entertainment. Yeah. And it's interesting also to think about it in respect to this, where obviously it is kind of entertaining in a train wreck sort of way, but also they don't want to perform.
Well, I'll tell you this.
He doesn't want to be like a prank monkey.
I'll tell you what I think. Let me tell you what. I think it's one of the most appealing things about John Cassavetes is that he's sort of the great image of the like provocateur, the great image of the truth teller, the great image of like the guy who doesn't give a fuck, like the artist, but also it's so manufactured at the same time.
Totally.
Like, whether it's general or not, like I think that a lot of, we talked about this before, but like a lot of ink has been spent on John Cassavetes, the movie maker, but not enough time has been spent on the image of John Cassavetes as like the cinema rebel, the outlaw kind of thing, where it's like, I think he believed everything he said. And there's actually an incredible moment in this that I forgot about where he talks about what the movie is supposed to mean.
This movie in particular.
With husbands, and it's incredibly progressive. It's incredibly progressive-minded. But at the same time, he's like acting out toxic garbage for 40 minutes with his two like bro-y co-stars.
Is this when this isn't, or he calls it like they film about comedy and what is it, like comedy and love and life or something?
Yeah. So he's just staring at Dick Cavett as they're trying to talk about his film.
This reminds me of when I went on Conan O'Brien. I was just smoking all the time, and
that was weird.
And he was like, "Dude, stop!"
Especially because that was
smoking.
6 months ago.
Yeah.
Why were you on that show?
Just totally randomly.
Weird. So now they're talking about.
I thought
husbands.
it was another George Frigopoulos.
So he's really trying to create a conversation here, and Ben Gazzara is
pretending to fall
just
asleep.
falling asleep, and then he's. So and what I love about this moment is it reminds me of the terrible.
Oh yeah.
Where Ben Gazzara is chanting.
So he got up and he screamed, "Watch this film! It's the greatest film ever!" Now he's dancing.
So Dick Cavett was trying when they came back from the commercial break. He said something like, "Let's start over again," but clearly these guys are only in it for. One reason.
That was a great dance, though.
It was not bad.
Two things will, Ben Gazzara will always dance, and Liam Billingham will always sing.
I dream.
See?
But I have to say something that I think.
Fall number
Pratt,
two.
Fall number 2. John
Although
Cassavetes.
This one was kind of weak. I only give that a 5.5.
So it's interesting because if you look at the dynamic here, Peter Falk just seems to be chill at this moment.
He does, yeah.
Even though I think, you know how we were talking about in the Faces episode, there's always a guy that you think is the worst in a John Cassavetes movie, and then there's the guy that's actually the worst.
Correct.
I secretly think Peter Falk is like the baddest cop.
Is he the one that takes off his shoes first?
I think so. We'll get there. But right now, Peter Falk's facing away. Ben Gazzara has danced.
And Cavett, it looks like they're trying to bring him into the conversation. Cavett is.
Yeah. Now, how do you think Cavett's feeling here? We're let's say 8 minutes into the interview.
I mean, I think he knows it's clearly going off the
And
rails.
it's live.
It's live, yeah. Oh, there we go. So
so Peter
Falk
Falk
just flash
pulled.
leg.
So he's asking about the improvisation in the film.
Well, it's very meta too, because obviously that's exactly what's happening
Right.
on the set.
Yeah, did we improvise the film? And no one will give a straight answer. And Gazzara's chomping on a cigar. And no one's talking. They're all doing the same, sitting the same way. So
Gazzara's like, this is why the film might seem
Gazzara's talking
long
about the film.
sometimes.
So do you feel like... I mean, what
So-
the hell is going on here? Like, seriously, what the hell?
Well, they're drunk.
Right, yeah, but...
I think again they thought it would be a lark to go out there and kind of perform versions of their characters from Husbands,
Right.
as if they're kind of still on this bender.
But I think also...
but not in a kind of, obviously they don't say like, hey, we're in character.
Right. I mean, you think that's part of it. I also
Totally.
wonder if like there's a little bit of this like anti-comedy vibe to it.
Oh, without question.
And
yeah.
this we go to the second commercial break with them with a little more chilled out than they had been. They're a little calmer.
Because it gets crazier, doesn't it? 'Cause
I think it gets a little bit crazy.
I don't think I ever saw the entire thing, but I saw most of it.
You haven't seen the entire
I know.
thing.
I'm so behind.
I feel like it could be hard to track while we're talking about it while we're watching it, but
Ooh, whatever happened to Aniston?
I think it's still around.
Is it?
I don't know. I thought so.
Relaxes the tension as it relieves the pain. Fascinating.
Have you ever been in a situation which Cavett is in where you feel like you're the butt of a joke and you can't escape it, especially with
have
men?
you met me before?
Well, especially with men.
Not
though,
me,
right?
dude. I'm
Like,
so fucking alpha.
You are really, really off. But you know what I mean? Like that sort of feeling. It's like being bullied in high school. Like that feeling
Yes.
of like, oh, I don't have control over this situation.
Totally. Yeah. Or also being in the situations where you're with people who are on the thin edge between like madness and sanity. And at any given moment, you're like, this could either be a fun time or somebody's going to really get hurt.
What do you mean?
Just, there's like a certain kind of palpable tension in the air.
Right. And there's
Wait,
like a
there we
little
go.
bit of
Gazzara
a
just
threat
took off
to
his...
it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Gazzara
yeah,
just
he's
took off
pulling
his
his shoes
his
off.
shoe and pulled up his...
Ironically, if you were to pull off, like if a man were to pull up his pant leg on a show right like now, it would be like a sexy thing. It would be like so weirdly treated.
Well, don't you think he's trying to play it like that? I mean, obviously in a joking kind of manner.
Yeah,
but...
of course. But I guess I mean like there's really nothing worse in the world than feeling like you're being humiliated by a group of people. Like I sympathize so heavily with Dick Cavett during this thing because like he's probably getting flashbacks. He's like kind of a he's a sort of like less like he's the kind of guy that probably has always been this way, which is kind of affable and fun, slightly like for lack of a better word with a feminine quality, and he's being mercilessly badgered by these three guys, and he probably became successful. People like this get places because they like learn how to use humor to diffuse stuff, and this is like an undifusable situation, if that's a word.
So earlier today I sent you that link to that New Yorker piece.
Right, my worst show ever.
Yeah, it was Cavett recollecting this show. And interestingly enough, he said that he just felt bad for them. He was embarrassed for them.
At the end of it or during? I can't
well,
remember.
I mean, that's I don't know.
We
if
should put that in the show
we
notes.
should put
that
it in the
article.
show notes. But it's interesting because while that's unfolding.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh yeah,
but
sir. This is where it says it.
He's talking about the film. So we're not going to talk for this section because I think it's worth absorbing this moment. So there's these there's this weird sprinkling throughout of seriousness, like
Yeah, of
Cassavetes
course.
every so often.
Well,
And it's the moment that I'm thinking of was not that, but there's a real moment coming up that's interesting where all of a sudden he gets serious about what the film is about.
you mean other than that moment?
Yeah. Sorry, we were talking about
What's Gazar doing with his phone? Now I
he's
can't
just
quite
playing
tell.
with his toes. So it goes from the serious thing about a conversation about the film dealing with death, and now Ben Gazzara is cleaning his feet, and it's pretty disgusting.
Unless you're a foot fetish enthusiast, I'm just saying.
And now
Guy's putting his sock back on.
This really is kind of like a Cassavetes movie, isn't it?
Oh, without question.
You know, because
again, you don't know what the fuck's gonna happen.
and also like it all feels very intentioned. Like I was, thinking about Faces recently and how like that movie is doing whatever it plans to do whenever it plans to do it. It's not really that it's improvised, but what kind of conversations do you think they had before they did this? They've just finished making this movie together. Like they're probably on a different kind of wavelength.
That's what I was gonna say too. I also think here's another almost a pratfall.
Fake pratfall.
I also think that other
Ben Gazzara prankfall.
And
John Cassavetes prankfall. And the drummer was on the beat on that one.
Fuck does not want to go down.
Can you fucking imagine being Dick
Cavett
Cavett
he
right
just
now?
wrestled him down. Oh, and then Gazzara jumps on him.
This is very bro-y. A little homoerotic.
Of course. I think, but what I was about to say is I think you're also, even though obviously they're acting like dicks.
Buffoons.
I think you're also seeing three men who just really love each other's company.
And that's a beautiful that's a beautiful thing.
And think it's and then the Cavett's running away. And think that there's think just really highly of one another.
And for the rest of us it feels like an exercise in self-indulgence a little bit. Which is interesting
Also,
because
it goes
I
on
think
for 40 fucking minutes. If this
40
were
fucking
a 10-minute thing.
Well, one thing that I
it'd be
think
great.
is really amazing
Well,
about
not great, but maybe.
Husbands is that like we talk a lot about bromances, and like in a way Husbands is the original bromance movie, which is like kind of a marketing kind of patter to speak, but
It's funny you should say that too, because when I think of a bromance, I think about the Magnificent Ambersons.
which we'll talk about probably in the future maybe
Oh,
someday.
maybe.
But
By the way, I was totally kidding.
spoiler.
I was totally kidding about the Magnificent Ambersons.
Oh really? I've never
About
actually
bromance.
seen it.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I'm
Is
very
there a table I could overturn?
sorry, I don't.
Disgust.
I haven't. Well, maybe we'll talk about Orson Welles in a future edition of the
Maybe. I'm
podcast.
just saying.
But no, really, like, do you feel like I feel like part of the reason that this clip appeals to me is because I grew up with men that related to each other by making fun of each other, like Irish Catholics from
Totally.
Boston. I don't know if it's similar.
Greek Americans as well.
Yeah, so it's like part of the appealing thing about this interview and Husbands is that they express their love for one another through a abiding sort of giving each other a hard time.
True, but primarily they're shitting on Cavett. They obviously
Which is
are
what makes
kinda-
this more problematic to me.
Correct.
It's like the bros in gym class making fun of like the kid they think
The
is
nerd.
queer or whatever to
yeah.
like use a term. Ooh, Stanley Kramer reference. Probably when he was making Too Late Blues.
It wasn't Too Late Blues. It was Child of Waiting.
I'm sorry, Child is Waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Another. Is it? I'm sorry. Is it prank?
It's a pratfall.
Pratfall.
Yes,
That's what I thought
exactly.
it was too.
Pratfall.
Something just fell off the table. Looked like it might have been a packet of cigarettes.
Oh, so at this moment we're 10 minutes in, I think. We're about 10 minutes in, maybe a little more. 20 minutes in. And Cavett asked them if they're all smashed. It's amazing how long it takes to get to that.
Well, I think Cavett's losing his cool too.
He looks like he's losing his cool. Wouldn't you lose your cool?
Well, he did just run off the set and come back.
Can we have a quick broy moment? Who's your favorite
sure.
husband in Husbands?
I thought we agreed that it was Gazzara.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know if maybe you had a different opinion, but I think Ben Gazzara is about as cool as it gets.
When I first saw it, I was really. I think Fox. I mean, they're all like amazing.
They're all amazing.
I think it's kind of silly to be like, oh, one's better than the other, but they all have their moments.
Can I ask you a question? Does this make
Please.
you want to watch the movie again?
I can wait.
It
a
makes me
little
want to
bit.
watch it like right now. Yeah, it really does.
We'll give maybe the first hour and then bail out after that,
Yeah,
as
that's
we've
probably
discussed
true.
in our Husbands episode.
But I think it's there's
I don't know why.
something else that's being suggested here, which is really interesting, which is like Couldn't you see any of these three guys, but particularly maybe Cassavetes and Gazzara, being like amazing clowns? Like couldn't you see like
Well, sad clowns.
or sad clowns, but even like couldn't you see them doing Shakespeare, like doing the clowns in Shakespeare really effectively, like
the
a Feste and Twelfth Night or the
Gravediggers?
Gravedigger, or like, I mean, I think probably he did do it. I think Ben Gazzara would be like a crazy King Lear fool or whatever the case might be. You know, just this like, they're all over the place. They're playing mind games. They're kind of challenging, being strange.
Did Cassavetes do any theater? That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a ton of theater.
Right?
Well, when we get to opening night, we'll talk more about it. But like,
That's right.
they
yeah.
did do. I think he died working on a couple plays.
So now Falk is at the front of the stage, and he seems to be
Talking about what the picture's about.
okay. Again. Oh, there, Cassavetes.
And he's about to go up on John. Oof.
At least the band knows what to do.
So interestingly, Cassavetes lifts Peter Falk up onto his shoulders, and they cut to
a commercial.
That's Dick Cavett at the center though.
And they're back.
Unfortunately, happy we're back. Ooh, women's lib. Okay, so let's.
So he just
Interesting shift.
apologizes.
A little bit. We calls him a good sport. I don't know if apology is the word.
He said we were clowning around a bit.
And Ben Gazzara kisses him.
And we're back kind of where
So look at how
so
embarrassed Dick Cavett is in that moment. Like I think it's adorable. So cute.
What did he just say?
I don't know. Should I back it up?
No.
No. Who has time for that? So this is kind of a quiet moment. I don't know. It's kind of nice.
It's the eye of the
lib. So we're
storm.
talking about women's lib.
Cavett just asked him if they had any fun.
They're watching it, George.
Sorry.
You should probably watch it once and then watch with the commentary.
Of course.
But they're talking about sort of about making the movie. Like things have settled down a little bit. It really,
He's just laughing his ass off.
You know, I feel like sometimes you spend some time sort of thinking about how terrible this is, but it's also like incredible TV. Like this is killer
course.
TV.
Can you imagine if you're watching it live?
Oh my God. Because you probably had never seen anything like this. Also, there was a time when these guys would have been on a mainstream television show talking about a movie that's completely impenetrable.
Yes.
From like a certain perspective.
Right. As a historical document, it's also interesting for that very reason.
Right. Talking about friendship.
So again, this Husbands was 70 or 71?
70.
70.
What's interesting here is that
7 years before
Ben Gazzara is
Star
talking
Wars.
about the first or second the first or second conversation they ever had, which was
Wait.
across a parking lot. Gazzara was like, Cassavetes was like, I want you to do a picture.
I mentioned Star Wars also just because it obviously kind of inaugurates the modern Hollywood.
Well, I would say
system.
Jaws does, if you really want to play that game.
Sorry. Which was a year before? Or same
76.
year?
Yeah,
76.
76.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, I mean, at this point, it's, you know, I don't know if people are necessarily, I don't think this film made any money. I think it was actually kind of a
Oh, of
bomb.
course. Yeah. I didn't think it made any money at all. But I'm just saying, as far as you said, to just have these three great actors on a show talking about what
with like a TV intellectual, like a TV.
Yeah, and right before Monday Night Football, no less.
That's true.
Is indicative, I think, of the time.
Well, and we've talked a little bit about Cassavetes maybe influence on Matt Weiner. Is it Weiner or Wiener?
I believe, I don't know, Weiner?
The guy who does
Weiner.
Mad Men and the Romanovs.
Does the Romanovs as well?
Yeah, he does the Romanovs. That's his show.
Can I plug my my Romanov recap show podcast? It's called The Bromanovs.
Oh, the Romanovs. That's amazing. I love it.
Me and my bros get together and talk about the Romanovs.
We just get to me and Steve and Kyle. We get together. We talk about the Romanovs.
There's a Chad in there too.
It's really good. Chad, how's Chad?
Oh, he's doing well.
We're
Lacrosse
I totally
team's
lost
doing
my train of
great.
thought. But the kind of
Matt Weiner.
men behaving badly quality of this is probably like I bet
Yeah?
Matt Weiner, like
Well, we talked about that with kind of the Draper connection.
right, but and I feel like there was a self-awareness. Do you think that these guys are we've talked about this a lot, but how self-aware are they?
Again, it's hard to say.
Well, we should come back to that Dick Cavett at the end. We should save the rest of that.
There's
worst
definitely
story ever.
there's definitely a critique of it.
But in the film, is there?
Yeah, of course. I don't think you could watch that film and be like, these guys are just heroes.
Yeah, no, that's true. But then you watch this interview and you wonder, like, how self-aware are they? I think, to my perspective.
Well, again, there's those moments where kind of Cassavetes sobers up and kind of either like apologizes or like,
Right.
let's talk about the film.
And we're about to see one of those, I think. I also like that they're smoking
All the time. Just nonstop.
all the time.
I would not mind seeing Orson Welles on the Dick Cavett show.
I'll send you I have that one bookmarked. I just saved Dick Cavett episodes. No, but it's available online.
That would explain your Dick Cavett back tattoo.
My Cavett. Oh.
Very clever.
No,
Well
but
played,
there
sir.
seems
Well
to be
played.
like a sprinkling of real
Well, right now, yeah. I mean, he just said something actually legitimately
interesting about
Orson
Orson
Welles.
Welles.
How quickly will it go downhill?
Yeah, that's
again?
the real question.
And any more pratfalls?
Who do you think the most handsome husband is?
I thought
think
we
it's-
agreed it's fucking Cassavetes.
I think it might be Ben Gazzara. I think
No,
Ben Gazzara is
stop.
better looking than John Cassavetes.
better,
Really?
better hair on Cassavetes.
Okay.
Better suit wearing capabilities.
Do you see the suit that Ben Gazzara is wearing, dude?
God-
Ben Gazzara wears a better suit than
Gazzara
John
definitely has
Cassavetes.
nicer feet. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
but also like Cassavetes' socks have nothing to do. Like his socks and his pants don't match. Like Ben Gazzara, like thought
But
it
look at that
through.
really cool thin tie.
Okay, the thin tie, fine, but everyone has that doesn't define that. Like
But
Jenna
he's the
Rollins
only
in the morning
one?
was like, John, put on a thin tie.
He's the only one conscious enough to wear that killer fucking tie.
I don't
Which
know.
I just also realized
Are we
that
also discounting Peter Falk?
Terrence-
I just got out of bed. Look, sorry
Yes,
to
we are.
Tarantino.
the Tarantino totally ripped that look off for Reservoir Dogs. Goes back to the Cassavetes thin tie.
Oh,
I'm calling it right now.
it's a big. It's a big moment.
So yeah, this is something we've talked about before about how sympathetic his films are to kind of outsiders or to those who are marginalized,
Mm-hmm.
those who are rejected. So it's interesting for him to talk about in terms of fear.
There was I plan on talk about this in a later episode, but so there's a little bit of like a men's
And-
rights
and
quality
women
there.
too, though.
And women too, but which is really great. And but there's for
Ladies
like
can
about a
be
half
pimps
second
too.
where you're like, and then you realize like he's actually a little more woke than maybe we've given him.
Well, again, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think, yes, to read that also in a sympathetic way, I think it's also just a critique of institutional structures, for example, like, let's say, marriage.
Which we've talked about with
Yeah, where
Faces.
people get sucked into and obviously would rather not be in those kind of
And
institutions.
this is a guy that was married
but
for a long time
the
and
pressure.
with the same woman, and I don't know if he was a
I know,
philanderer
I'm really
or a
fucking curious
cheater,
about
but
that. I'm really curious about that.
but like I think was pretty devoted to his wife. You know, there's a series of
I
tweets that we
booked
should.
Jenna Rollins for the next episode, by the way, so we can just ask her.
Oh, I'm busy for the next episode. Sorry, I don't know if it's gonna work.
Interview her
No, but
on
there was
my
a series
own.
of tweets put out on John Cassavetes' birthday.
What's a tweet?
There was a series of tweets put out, and I think, one
Like
thing.
Cassavetes in this recording right now.
And I retweeted one of them and I forget who it was by, and I apologize because I'm going to talk about you on Twitter, but she made the point of like he really dug into other people's points of views. And so in a weird way, Husbands is sort of a disparate film in his filmography, in the sense that like
Because
it's probably the closest to who he is.
It's very
But
focused.
then, immediately after this, you have Minnie and Moskowitz, which is very different, like, which deals with, in very interesting and quiet ways, the Judaism, the Jews. Like, there's a little bit of the Jewish thing in that, the Judaism, and there's a little bit of it's also like the movie that gives Jenna Rollins the most perspective. And then the film he would make after that is Women Under the Influence, which is like radically departs from the sort of images that he's created. And so it's, when we started talking about this before we started to watch the films, I really think we were largely, and I sort of see that this moment, this conversation about this film is a little bit of like a marker in the longer trajectory of the thing, because I feel like we've spent a lot of time being like, oh, he made Husbands, it's a little broy, et cetera, et cetera. But he's a little more self-aware than maybe I gave him credit for being, which is nice but I do feel like maybe some of that is lost on the fanage that spend a lot of time. Like, I've always associated him with things that are depressing and sad and not like the heavy shit that you see in the art house cinema, etc. But there's a lot more like buoyancy and a lot more kind of like humor in what he's.
There's a lot of humor,
right? Especially like last film we talked about was Minnie and Moskowitz,
and there's a lot of humor in Husbands too. So we're 33 minutes in.
We got a couple more minutes,
nearing the end. But again, also we missed it here. But at some point, he did also reiterate that tagline about the film about it being comedy,
which it is. I think it's a comedy. I mean, it's the second hour of it isn't ha 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 ha, but it's a funny thing.
They're funny moments, certainly. But this is also like one of those moments where you think about, like, are they buying into the bullshit? Like, I feel alive. I found out more alive.
The language is very cliche, right?
Yeah, than I've ever been.
Well, it makes you think a little bit about, like, you watch a film like Faces, which I think is the sort of the best reference point for this, and like how much of it is like one of the great things with him is how much is performance, how much is he letting the actors just do their thing. Like, you can think that it's self-indulgent or whatever the case might be, and like actors have now learned to talk about things in like a very specific way. But like you watch this and like there's a cliche quality to it, but like I don't necessarily think that Peter Falk is bullshitting his way through this.
But it's also funny because he kind of catches himself and not laughs, but he could tell like everybody else laughs.
Did you think he laughs because he's embarrassed?
Or that I don't think he's embarrassed. I think because he just also realizes there's an affect and performativity to, like he's aware that he's delivering lines.
Interesting, because I think that's a academic folks will talk a lot about the performativity of a Cassavetes film.
Yeah.
Which is
But it's also that's interesting. Yeah, performativity.
Or performance in general,
but not it's not like Brechtian.
Yeah, that like a distance.
The estrangement effect, right? Where somebody like the actors like look into the camera and like make exaggerated,
make you aware of their performance.
Correct.
Yeah, that's true.
Which again, what's interesting also about this, in the sense of to what degree are they again performing these kind of characters that they were in Husbands. Because again, there are these moments of sobriety,
or just pure like maybe earnestness.
Clarity.
I don't know if
maybe
it's clarity. Is there such a thing as clarity in a John Cassavetes universe? I'm not so sure there is.
Oh, that's deep.
Thank you. But I really think that like it is to come back to, we could spend all our time on Cassavetes, but Cavett, we're spending literally so much fucking time on John Cassavetes, but the Cavett again, it's like that feeling of being bullied, that feeling of being like not in on the joke is really, and that's sort of disappeared here a little bit. You know, they've calmed down a little bit. But it must be pretty humiliating, even though I think you may
think in the moment?
Sure, I think so. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe Dick Cavett.
So again,
Dick Cavett's a professional. He knows what he's doing.
According to that New Yorker piece, which again we'll post a link to.
We'll be in the notes.
Cavett said that once they walked off stage, the producer of the film said to them something like, "You guys just unsold a whole bunch of tickets for your movie."
And the other thing
they were embarrassed. They looked like
horrified.
that they were. He described them as being kind of looking like kids who had just been yelled at.
Well, the other thing that's interesting about that is that
the ABC Sunday. Wait, can we find out what the ABC Sunday Night Movie is going to be?
Oh yeah, let's find out.
And I think that's it. Is that the end of it? Did we just miss the end? I think
we'll find out.
Ooh, The Brotherhood.
I love The Brotherhood.
Oh, it's a classic.
So these are TV movies? No, that's not from a. Oh, that's a different.
Ooh,
movie.
The Long Ride Home. That man just stepped on that woman's foot.
Wow, God, I don't remember. I've never heard Tony Rome with Frank Sinatra.
We have to watch all these films now.
Yeah, the next Uber Busters season is this evening of ABC Sunday night series.
Oh, there's so many.
I've not heard
Hurry
of Modesty
Sundown.
Blasé. I remember that.
No Way Out.
The Blue Max. Oh, they're repeating titles now.
Oh, they are. Yeah, I guess there's only 10.
The Queller Memorandum.
Waterhole number 3. So, in conclusion.
Yes. Well, no, we can talk. Okay, so I think it's over.
We've talked over this.
Football.
American football.
Football Americano. So anyway, they apparently spent every time they saw Dick Cavett for the next 20 years, they all apologized, which is, pretty interesting to think about. That was sort of the end of their.
Well, I'm sure once they saw themselves on screen, they realized the depths of their lunacy.
But then what do you know? It's a good question about like what you want from because, not to be that guy, but like I despise Jimmy Fallon's show
because
with
it's
the
so
Fire of a
scripted
Thousand Suns because like, depending on what you want from your late night TV, like I miss the Letterman days where I felt like he'd blow up a car or like whatever the case might be. Like, I don't know, late night TV feels so safe now. And I don't mean that, I try not to mean that in some kind of annoying
and we're back
white dude, like, oh, where's the risk taking? Because of course there are really interesting things going on late night TV, but
so now Cavett's saying goodnight to them.
I just feel like there is a real sort of funny risk to this. And like the format was a lot more limited in terms of the technology. You really could only have people talk to each other at this point. There wasn't like the ability to have a remote camera crew or whatever else. So
now I want to shop at J.
I kind of, it would be nice if you still had the feeling that even though the wacky things that happen on TV shows didn't feel scripted. Like I recently watched a clip of John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell singing Reunited. Because they're doing that new Sherlock Holmes movie together, and like, sure, it was funny and whatever, and like I watched John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell do anything together, but it's like it's so pre-planned and whatever else that it doesn't feel like we all accept that everything is pre-planned now, where it's like there's clearly a random, unpredictable quality to this.
And it's very rare that anything's screened live,
right?
Which is obviously also...
Well, everyone doesn't... I don't think people are watching the clips day of anymore.
Totally. Yeah. Well, again, I think, is there risk-taking anymore? I mean, I don't know. It's a...
Well, that's also a very limited term.
I think totally correct. But I totally agree with you that, for the most part, late-night television is kind of a wasteland.
Yeah,
and it is so, again, scripted and planned.
They know what the questions are before. Like, you got to wonder how much time Cavett would spend planning beforehand. I mean, he probably didn't need to, go too deep into it with his guests.
But that's what I'm saying. He definitely met up with them, if briefly, right before.
You think so?
Yeah.
Because he knew that
There's
they
no
were
way.
wasto?
No, I just think like that's the kind of like the regular thing to do. You'd like meet your guests. You wouldn't just meet them totally cold. You'd probably like meet them maybe like
Sometimes
half hour, an hour
sometimes
before.
hosts meet them cold.
You think so?
It happens sometimes. I mean, it depends on the
you talking
importance of the
experience?
clip. Yeah, well, I mean, I was
When
on,
I was on again, when I was on Conan,
I was on Conan one day before you, and I found that we didn't really have time to meet up before because I was so busy.
Way to block my Conan joke.
Yeah, well, Conan Blocker.
Conan blocker. Conan blocker?
Conan Blocker.
That sounds.
Well, there's a lot we could talk about with this thing, but it's over now.
Boo.
Any parting thoughts?
Yeah, go watch The Magnificent Ambersons.
Me?
Just everybody, because it's fucking amazing.
I'm sure it's good, but
I haven't seen it in a very long time.
Did you buy the Blu-ray?
I did not buy the Blu-ray on my salary.
But yeah, I hope you enjoyed us talking our way through this thing. It was a bit all over the place, but then again, so was the thing that you're seeing, and we'll be back.
We definitely didn't script anything, that's for sure.
We definitely didn't script it, and we have been. Well, we had one polite drink whilst we were. Actually, you had like 4. Are you okay?
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm walking.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
You feel like a
My
brother.
back pain's gone.
Your back pain's gone?
Totally.
That's great. So we're gonna end this now. We'll be back next week with.
Next week?
Next week. Yeah, next week.
Yeah.
With Minnie. No, yeah, Minnie and Moskowitz.
Which we already recorded.
Why are you
Or
telling
did
them?
we?
Did we? Da, 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 da.
I knew you would sing. I'm George Fragopoulos.
I'm Liam Billingham.
Bye.
Bye.
Author of Accomplices to the Crime, Thomas Merton. You guys, it's really been one of the most interesting evenings of my life. I must say, some of it was a pain, but it was pleasant. And just, would you promise me one thing? Would you go do the same things to Griffin and Garza? We'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you.